Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was the Son of Kagura Sasuke. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. High in the mountainous region of Lightning Country, a monastery rested carefully on the rocky peak. Within a garden in that same monastery, two boys faced opposite each other. Both of them stood across from each other in a large dirt circle. Arms forward in a fighting stance, eyes locked, senses alert. Both 12-year-old children knew not to underestimate the other, and that a split second of lost concentration could mean losing to the person opposite. Both boys were bare-chested, showing off years of rigorous training, in the form of a muscular upper body. The only article of clothing they had on were baggy woolen pants that allowed for quick movements with minimal resistance. The only thing that distinguished them was their eyes and hair, one having short red hair with purple ripple-like eyes, the other having long white hair down to the middle of his back and pure white eyes. Both boys also had two horns that adorned their foreheads, both sets being a few centimeters tall. The garden they occupied was silent, like the inhabitants were holding their breath, waiting to see how the fight would begin. It was the one with white hair that started the fight. Rushing forward, he traveled the distance between them in the time it would take for an ordinary person to blink, leaving his opponent no room to move. He appeared in front of his opponent, launching a right kick to the red-haired boy's side, with speed that most would find impossible to keep up with. His opponent though was not most people. Blocking the kick with his left foot, the red-haired boy thrust his right arm forward, trying to hit his opponent with a palm thrust to the chest. The keyword being trying. The white-haired one seemed to be able to read his opponent's move, already moving his left hand to grab the boy's wrist. Succeeding, the white-eyed child yanked the other child's arm forward before letting go of his wrist, while simultaneously punching the redhead in the chest, launching him back several meters before he came to a stop. "It was stupid of you to try and fight me up close, Hagoromo. You know I'm better than you in that regard," the white-haired one taunted. The other child, Hagoromo, just rubbed the part of his chest where he'd been punched. "I know that, Naruto. What do you think I was trying to do with that palm thrust?" Hagoromo said. Damn, he wished his brother didn't punch so hard. Although he thought it could have been much worse were this not a spar. His brother had recently found out how to channel chakra into his fist and release it in such a way that when he punched, he could knock down several trees. They had to proof in another part of the large garden that made up part of the monastery. Hopefully I won't have to use. He was shaken out of his thoughts by his instincts screaming at him to move. Deciding to trust them, he leaped to the side. It was only his years of training and naturally quick reflexes that helped him narrowly avoid a bolt of lightning that struck the ground, with enough heat and power to scorch the earth and throw up a small amount of dirt. Turning to his brother, Hagoromo yelled out at him for his stupidity. "What the hell was that, you dumbass? You could have killed me. You have to remember that your lightning is far more deadly than mine, and also travels a whole lot faster." Naruto, from across their makeshift arena, rolled his now yellow eyes that were slowly fading back to white. "Why, thank you for that, Hagoromo. I obviously didn't know that after using lightning for several years," Naruto said sarcastically. "You do know that there wasn't enough chakra put in that attack to kill you, right?" Naruto said, smiling. His brother still got angry at the smallest of things. "I scorched the ground," Hagoromo yelled. "Yes, I can see that," Naruto said, smirking. "Still doesn't change the fact that it wouldn't have killed you. Now are you going to continue whining like a baby, or are you going to fight?" Naruto said, goading his brother while falling back into his original fighting stance. Hagoromo said nothing, simply getting back into his own fighting stance. There was a moment of silence before it was broken, this time by Hagoromo. The boy leaned his head back before quickly leaning forward and exhaling a great breath of orange and red flame, twice as tall as the one it was aimed at. Instead of panicking, Naruto stayed calm. Using his ability over water, Naruto moved both his hands back, before thrusting them forward towards the pillar of fire that approached him. Almost immediately two things happened. One was that Naruto's white eyes started to glow blue. The second was that a large bubble of water appeared behind him, the result of water vapor in the air joining together via Naruto's will. Before it moved forward in front of Naruto and spreading to form a wall of water that blocked the flames with a hiss. Trying to keep the momentum and not wanting to give his brother an inch, using the rest of the water he had, Naruto pulled his hands back before thrusting them again, this time fingers first. The result was the remaining water from the water wall splitting into multiple small bubbles before elongating into spears that then shot forward towards his brother's position. His brother, who hadn't moved from his position, simply knelt down and punched the ground, causing a wall of earth to erupt from the ground, blocking the water spears. Like his brother, Hagoromo then thrusted both hands towards the earthen wall, causing it to move forward. On the other side of the earth wall, Naruto smirked. Instead of dodging around the wall or even destroying the wall like his brother would expect him to do, he decided to try out a new move that he had theorized would be able to take out his brother, especially if he didn't expect it. Running towards the approaching wall, Naruto leapt up to the top of it before pushing off the wall and launching himself into the air. As he reached the peak of his jump and slowly started to descend, Naruto gathered pressurized wind into a ball beneath his bare feet, while strengthening his legs and feet with chakra internally. Naruto grinned as he approached the ground. It didn't really matter anymore if his attack hit his brother or not anymore, he just wanted to try out his new move. As he neared the ground, Naruto called out the name of his attack. Wind Pulse. As Naruto hit the ground, feet first, the sphere of wind beneath his feet was but under amazing pressure, because of the combined factors of Naruto's weight, the speed he was falling at, and the solid earth underneath the sphere. Not being able to go up because of Naruto's weight and speed and not being able to go down because of the earth, the sphere of wind did the only thing it could do. It exploded to the sides. A ring of air shot out from underneath Naruto at breathtaking speeds, kicking up dust as it rocketed outwards before slowly losing momentum. Naruto stood where he landed, waiting for his brother to appear and attack, or for the dust cloud to settle. As his visibility cleared, the youngest Sasuke spied a dome of earth roughly where his brother was standing last time he checked. Assuming that his brother was still in there, he readied himself, just in time to watch as the dome retracted back into the earth, revealing his brother. Almost immediately his brother spoke to him, agitation clear in his voice. "Are you going to do something stupid in every match?" Hagoromo questioned. A noticeable vein was bulging on his forehead as a sign of his frustration with his brother. "I don't know." Naruto questioned back in a lazy voice, clearly trying to annoy his red-haired opponent. "Are you going to do something interrupt a match for things that could wait till later?" "Yes," his brother replied. "I am." Hagoromo continued to look at his brother before smirking, slightly confusing Naruto. "I was saving this for a later time, but I guess now will do." As Hagoromo got into a fighting stance, he mumbled something inaudible to Naruto before he charged. Naruto was surprised at the speed that his opponent was now displaying. He was much faster than before. After getting over his brother's speed, Naruto quickly moved out of the way of the incoming charge, before sweeping low with his foot, trying to use his brother's speed against him. Once more Naruto was surprised when his brother stopped quickly before jumping over the outstretched leg. Naruto quickly straightened back up and engaged his brother with several punches, trying to keep him on the back foot so he could quickly figure out what had changed with his brother's combat skills recently, and, if possible, find a way around it. "What's going on?" Naruto questioned inwardly. Hagoromo was never this fast or agile before. What did he do? Naruto then inwardly winced as he caught one of his brother's punches that almost managed to get inside his guard. "And strong as well," he mentally added. Naruto was quick to backpedal to get out of his brother's arm reach. "The only thing I know of that Hagoromo could be using is..." Just as he realized what his brother was using, the voice of his brother jolted him out of his thoughts. "I see you realize what I'm using, Naruto," Hagoromo said as if reading his opponent's thoughts. "And you are correct, the Asura Path." As Hagoromo finished speaking, wordlessly 4 extra arms sprouted out of his shoulder blades. "Out of all the paths he knows, it happens to be the one I hate the most," Naruto said to himself, though his brother still heard him and could only smirk at the reason why. When Hagoromo was first learning how to use the Asura Path in one of the prayer room, it was just himself and Naruto in the room, as he wanted to learn more about his mother's and brother's special eyes. While Naruto was in the room, Hagoromo lost control of the path slightly. The result was his fist shooting off his arm and slamming into an unprepared Naruto's stomach. Hagoromo's youngest brother rolled around in pain on the floor. Hagoromo himself laughed until his voice was hoarse. Since then Naruto has steered clear of his brother whenever he used that particular path. "Don't tell me you're still upset about the Asura incident?" Hagoromo asked, while stifling a laugh. After what had been dubbed the Asura incident, the youngest of the Sasuke had told both his mother and brother that if they used that particular path in front of him with the exception of a spar, he would leave the vicinity immediately. "And you wouldn't after being hit in the gut by a flying fist. Anyway, how do I know you have control over that path, and that you won't just start firing fists at me?" Naruto said as he eyed the 6 fists wearily, as if he expected them to explode. "I wouldn't be using the path if I could control it perfectly. Have some faith in Naruto," the eldest Sasuke sibling replied to his brother. "I did," his brother mumbled. "And a fist hit me in the gut." If Hagoromo hurt his brother, he made no move to show it. "Fine, I guess when I beat your ass it will feel all the sweeter," the youngest sibling then smirked. "Let me show you something else I have been working on recently." As he spoke, Naruto's normally white eyes turned a fiery red, and Hagoromo frowned slightly as he recalled why that was. After a couple of years using his elements, Hagoromo and his mother noticed that when Naruto used a certain element, Naruto's eyes would turn a light shade of the respective element. However, the light always got slightly darker and closer to the color of the element Naruto was using. Their mother theorized that the closer the color was the element Naruto was using, the higher the mastery Naruto had over that particular element. But that wasn't the reason Hagoromo was frowning. The reason he was frowning was because during a fight a few months earlier, Naruto was using the elements heavily while fighting against Hagoromo when Naruto suddenly stopped and his eyes flashed different colors. Sometimes both eyes were the same color, other times different colors in each eye. This continued for about a minute before Naruto collapsed backwards onto the ground, unconscious. When he awoke a day later, Naruto waved off concerns from both his brother and mother, saying that it was just another part of his abilities he unlocked unknowingly by using his multiple elements at the same time. When asked what it was he uncovered, Naruto said that he wasn't quite sure, and he would tell them when he was ready, and had a firm grasp on what it was and how it worked. It was after Naruto displayed his healing ability that any new abilities that he uncovered, he would be able to practice by himself, as it was unlikely that his mother or brother would be able to help him with any abilities, and so Naruto explored his abilities by himself. That was months ago, and Naruto still hadn't shown any indication what it was his new power could do. Hagoromo got ready for the fire that he knew he would receive from Naruto, tipped off by his glowing eyes. Hagoromo calculated that it would most likely come from the hands or feet, maybe even creating it in the air around him. Instead, though, Naruto chose to take a deep breath and release it in a blowing motion. The result was a large plume of fire to extend out of his mouth. What happened next shocked Hagoromo. The fire twisted and turned, molding itself into something, though Hagoromo didn't know what. The answer was soon clear as fire in the shape of a dragon rushed the six-armed child, with the child barely able to jump to the side to avoid the impact of the elemental dragon. He was caught off guard though, when the attack exploded, just catching him on the edge of the blast radius. While Hagoromo came out of the blast relatively unscathed thanks to his Asura path, he was still singed by the fire. He was left no room to comment, though his rock roughly the size of his torso was flung at him by his brother. However, utilizing the abilities of the Asura path, he simply punched the boulder, shattering it with his strength. Not wanting to let his brother have any more time to launch another attack, Hagoromo quickly stuck his wrist out. Wordless, several small pointed projectiles launched themselves out from his wrist via fire that came out from the bottom. He then charged behind the metal projectiles, using them as cover to get in close to his brother, while his focus was on the metal objects, knowing that he would have the upper hand in close quarters while using the Asura path. Naruto was surprised by the small projectiles, not having any knowledge of them due to not wanting to be present when the Asura path was used. However, it didn't take a genius to know that the incoming projectiles weren't friendly. Quickly gathering his chakra, while knowing that the elements would work against such a large number of projectiles, and extending his hands in front of him. A dark blue dome surrounded Naruto, just as the first of the projectiles approached. After the first of the metal objects impacted and exploded against his shield, creating smoke that obscured the front of Naruto's view. Naruto inwardly thanked his luck. He seriously doubted that any earth shield or any shield of the elements he could make would be able to hold up against the current onslaught. It was then that he felt a heavy object smash into his shield with a dull thud. Naruto smirked. Poor Hago. The white-haired boy said to himself. His brother mustn't have seen his shield through the smoke created by his own projectiles. If he had, he would have used a much stronger attack to try to breach his shield, rather than charging. The shield was actually made out of Naruto's own chakra. This was another ability he discovered over the years. Naruto didn't actually the full extent of this ability, like how large he could create structures, because there wasn't enough space in or around the monastery. Or how much damage or pressure his chakra creations could take, as it could withstand all of the attacks that weren't on a large scale, with the exceptions of the Diva Path's unnamed force abilities. The attacks of the Diva Path moved the chakra constructs, unless they were anchored to the ground just like anything else. There was a passive ability about his chakra construct's ability, as it had been named, that made both Hagoromo and his mother quite frustrated, though this wasn't so much an ability granted by chakra constructs, but more like a side effect his chakra had on that constructs he made. As it turns out, his chakra was incredibly dense, or in other words compact. Normally this wouldn't mean anything besides meaning that Naruto had more chakra than previously thought, but the surfacing of his chakra construct's ability changed that. Because his chakra was incredibly dense, this made the constructs he created harder, but also meant that they were charged with more chakra than originally thought. This had the side effect of rendering the pre-top path almost useless against him, unless they were fully touching him. This was because it made it slower to absorb the chakra from the chakra constructs he created, meaning that his mother and brother would have to grab onto the constructs or be touching them for long periods, leaving them open to attack from either himself or other constructs. It was an amusing sight to see his brother poring over books or meditating for hours, trying to find a way around the chakra construct's ability. Naruto was about to gloat to his brother when he heard two words that made his eyes widen. Shinra Tensei. Aw crap. Naruto thought as he was flown towards the edge of the makeshift arena and landed on his back with a thud. Naruto groaned as he made his way towards his feet. Taking one of those Diva Path attacks always hurt, even when the technique's power was lowered significantly. Looking towards his brother at the opposite end of the field, now having the normal 2 arms instead of 6, he couldn't help but inwardly facepalm at his own stupidity. Why the hell didn't I press the advantage? Oh right, too busy with the mini flashback. Note to self. Have flashbacks when not sparing within close range of Hagoromo. As he got back into his fighting stance, ready to continue slugging it out with his brother, he was stopped by a voice. Hagoromo, Naruto, stop your spar and come over here, I must talk to you. Turning towards the voice, he noticed his mother standing near the entrance. He lowered his stance, noticing Hagoromo doing the same, and made his way over to his mother. Naruto's mother, Kaguya, had not changed much over the years. The only thing that was really different about her were the 4 long objects wrapped in brown cloth she was holding, 2 in each hand. As they approached her, she sat down with her knees underneath her, placing the bundles on both sides of her, and gestured for them to do the same, which they did. As they sat opposite their mother, they noticed a serious look on her face. After a minute of silence, the Oni spoke. After raising you both for close to 13 years within this monastery, feeding you, clothing you, teaching you and training you, I have come to the conclusion that in order for you both to grow both ability-wise and as people, it is time for us to leave the monastery. Kaguya waited a moment for the questions that were sure to come, and she was not disappointed. What? Why do we have to leave? This was asked by Naruto, who was followed closely by his elder brother. I agree with Naruto, what reason would we have to leave the monastery? Hagoromo said. He knew several reasons, but wanted to hear them from his mother. Kaguya was silent for a moment before speaking. This monastery, while sheltering you and helping you grow, has left you lacking in knowledge that more common people take for granted. Things like how to interact with other people your own age, and an understanding of how the rest of the world behaves and works, I have unfortunately stripped from you when I decided to raise you both in isolation from the rest of the world. It will also hopefully help you see why I believe that peace can only be achieved through forceful means. Here she looked at Hagoromo while he looked back defiantly. During this, Naruto sighed. How to achieve peace has been a constant argument between mother and son, both believing that their method was the true way to achieve peace. The only reason Naruto was left out of their argument was that because Kaguya's and Hagoromo's methods completely opposed each other, and because Naruto's own method of peace was almost completely different from both of theirs. After another minute of staring at each other, Kaguya and Hagoromo broke off the staring match, and Kaguya continued speaking. There is also the fact that there isn't enough space to use truly devastating techniques without destroying the monastery, and both of you need to be able to use your abilities on a large scale. Here she turned to Hagoromo again, but this time spoke to him instead of staring. There is also the fact that some of your abilities require people in order to properly test, and I'd prefer it if you didn't use your brother as a test dummy. There are also techniques for other paths that I haven't told you about, because they need large amounts of space. Before we leave, however, both of you need to be able to use a weapon that won't draw attention to yourselves. Here she unveiled the 4 bundles, placing 2 in front either brother. Both of them received a sword, a katana to be precise. Both of them were almost exactly the same, the differences being the guard, and the color of cloth the hilt was wrapped in. Hagoromo had his guard in the shape of an orange magatama with purple cloth around the hilt, while Naruto had a golden guard that was etched with the kanji for fire, wind, water, earth and lightning in a circle. The cloth on Naruto's hilt was a dark blue, the same shade as his chakra. The other gift Hagoromo and Naruto received was a shakuge and a staff, respectively. The shakuge was a strange black metal pole with a gold large ring stuck on top, and 6 smaller gold rings hung from the larger ring. Naruto's staff was strange, made of the same black metal that made up Hagoromo's shakuge. It has a gold topping that split, going opposite ways before the sides pointed down, making the top look like an M shape. Both boys were speechless. The weapons were amazing. Where did you get these? Hagoromo asked after a minute to fully take in the weapons in front of him. The 2 swords were in the armory when I originally arrived here. The other 2 weapons were made by me. Kaguya replied to both boys' shocked features. Their mother had made these. How? Naruto asked. I used an aspect of the Rinnegan to create them both, she said simply. This shocked Hagoromo slightly more than Naruto. Hagoromo had thought he'd seen the majority of the abilities his mother wielded with the Rinnegan, although he knew that there were some abilities he hadn't seen, hence why he wasn't surprised when his mother told him he needed more space for some abilities. But to hear that there was something that could create things was a shock. Why had his mother not shown him this, and more importantly, when did she figure this out? Ka-san, when did you learn how to do this, and why didn't you show me? The technique was most like not destructive since neither myself nor Naruto have heard anything, so why the secrecy? Hagoromo questioned. Though he knew there was most likely a reason, he was quite upset about not even knowing about the ability. Because Hagoromo, Kaguya said simply, like she chiding him. The technique I used to create the weapons you see before you is the pinnacle ability of the Rinnegan. This is something that took me years to get right, and just creating those weapons cost me majority of my chakra. This is not a technique to take lightly. She then closed her eyes and released a breath. She opened her eyes as she began to speak, her white eyes staring into the 2 children before her. I learned this technique several years ago. Here she turned to her eldest. Hagoromo, what do you know of how I got my eyes in chakra? Kaguya questioned. Hagoromo frowned, not seeing the point in such a question, but answered it anyway, hoping it would give him the answers he desired. You told Use that you ate the chakra fruit that grew every 1,000 years from the base of the Shinju tree, that you blacked out, then awoke with appearance changed. Hagoromo refrained from questioning what the point of that was. You're correct, Hagoromo, and that is what make my Rinnegan different from yours. Hagoromo brows furrowed in questioning while Kaguya, who saw the beginnings of a question on his lips, held up a hand to hold him from speaking so she could talk. Throughout this, Naruto sat there silently, knowing he had nothing to really speak about in this matter. It was between his mother and brother. The difference between your Rinnegan and mine, Hagoromo, is that to unlock your Rinnegan's abilities is a combination of instincts, as seen when you unlock the pre-top path, along with experimentation and practice. My abilities, however, surface the same way as yours with the addition of another way, meditation. What I have realized over the course of my life with the Rinnegan is that all my abilities were already unlocked. However, the shock of my new abilities as well as my other eyes fought for dominance had the side effect of forcing my instinctually knowledge of my eye to the back of my mind, and that it is only recently through meditation have they surfaced. Here Kaguya paused before speaking in a more hesitant voice, something that her horned sons rarely ever heard. She was usually so sure of herself. It is also my belief that the instinctual knowledge that is received with the unlocking of the Rinnegan's abilities will fade over the generations, and that it will eventually disappear completely. This is because it has already started with you, Hagoromo. From what you have told me of your instincts, they are already noticeably weaker than my own, though that will not impact on your overall strength. Pause, letting her eldest soak up the information while she inwardly debated over what to do next. I will have to eventually tell them, she thought, frowning internally, not wanting to let her sons see her inner turmoil. They need to know the reason why I have trained them. Despite the faith she had in her sons, she was still worried it wasn't enough to face what was coming, or that one of them would do something stupid. I must have faith in them to do what must be done. Kaguya took a deep breath, willing herself to calm down while simultaneously squashing the doubts that lingered in her mind. Her children could do this, they had to. Hagoromo, Naruto. She called, getting the twins' attention. It was quite funny when she thought about it. If she hadn't given birth to the children before her, she would have never thought they were twins. It was almost laughable. One was calm, incredibly intelligent, mostly quiet, ripple-eyed, red-haired boy. The other was a sometimes loud white-haired child, white-eyed child that hid his surprising intelligence under his mask, if it could be called that. In fact, the only reason one would think they were related would be the horns that adorned both their heads. Otherwise, they could have been born in two completely different families. Shaking herself out of those thoughts, she returned to the present. It is time I told you why I started your training. This got both boys' attention, as far as they knew their mother wanted them to control their powers, so they wouldn't accidentally kill someone. Noticing her children straightening up, showing how much attention they were paying here, she continued. Almost 13 years ago, I felt a being of some sort gaining power rapidly. At first I thought that someone else had eaten the Shinju's fruit, but I immediately discarded that idea, as I had already eaten the fruit some years before. After inspecting the being's energy, I realized that it was incredibly similar to my own chakra. At the time I would have investigated, but the two of you had been born, and I wasn't about to move around with two newborn babies. So I decided to stay here at the monastery. Here she took a breath before continuing to speak. It was only later that I realized what it was, as well as why it was gaining power. It was a Shinju. Ignoring the intake of breath she heard from both her sons, she continued. And the reason it was gaining power or awakening was because it was after its chakra. Here she paused, looking directly at her sons. However, I realized it was not the chakra I possessed, as it was too similar to its own to notice, otherwise it would have started to wake as soon as I ate its fruit. No, I realized that what it was after was the chakra my two sons possessed. Hearing this, both sons froze, partially in fear and also shock. How are you meant to fail when you find out that a god is coming after you? Something that couldn't be destroyed, a primordial force, a being with almost unlimited power was coming at you with a single mission to destroy you, and most likely anything in its path. To both Hagoromo and Naruto's credit, they didn't cry with the knowledge that their impending doom could be coming. After several minutes of both brothers just staring at nothing, Hagoromo asked a question that plagued both their minds. How long do we have? Hagoromo asked, while his mind went over the importance of the answer both himself and his brother would receive. One answer could give them a little bit of hope that perhaps against all odds, they could win against the beast that they would face in the future. The other answer could devastate them. It could crush all the hope, life and spirit out of their bodies. Hagoromo prayed it wasn't the latter. I don't know, Kaguya confessed honestly. She truly had no idea how long they would have. It could be anywhere from a day to several years. The only thing I know for sure is that you will face the Shinju eventually. At least we will all face it together, right, Kasan? Hagoromo said, while praying that they had several more years to get stronger. When he didn't hear his mother respond, he asked again, this time slightly nervous about the answer. Kasan. Kaguya sighed before answering. No, unfortunately Hagoromo, I cannot help you defeat the Shinju. Knowing that she was most likely going to get interruptions from Hagoromo and Naruto, she was quick to continue. It is not that I will not help you, but rather I cannot help. Here she sighed. Because the fruit I ate contained its chakra, my chakra is now too similar to it to do any damage. Because all of my attacks are laced with my chakra, all I would be doing is giving it energy to use against you, whenever my attacks connect. In fact, if my theory is right, if I get in close enough proximity, it could simply absorb all the chakra I have in my body out through my skin, and since my body is so accustomed to chakra now, the shock my body would feel from losing my chakra would most likely kill me. Here she sighed again. She seemed to be doing that a lot lately. With enough time, my chakra may change so that I might be able to harm the Shinju, but by the time that happens, it may have already awoken. Even then it would take so long that by the time my chakra is different from the Shinju's own, I will most likely be an old woman, and I won't be able to help you at all, with my body being too frail. After that she stayed silent, knowing they would need a lot of time to fully take everything she told them in. Both boys were completely frozen. Not only would they have to take on an entity that was basically a god, but to do it without their mother. It was a heavy blow. Ka-chan. This time it was Naruto talking with an oddly serious face. Kaguya could count the number of times Naruto had been truly serious on 2 hands. Kaguya was snapped out of her internal thoughts by Naruto's voice. Ka-chan, be honest. Do you think me and Hagoromo have a chance of beating the Shinju? Naruto's voice was neutral, not betraying how he felt. His mother knew that this is an important question for him and Hagoromo, who was silently listening. The mother of two looked between both her sons before responding. I believe that. No? Kaguya was cut off by Naruto's uttering a single word. It wasn't loud, said in a commanding tone, or even accompanied by an action, and yet that single word cut Kaguya off, halting anything she was going to say. Both Kaguya and Hagoromo were surprised by Naruto. I asked you to be honest. Naruto's words were soft yet hard, cutting through the silence of the garden like a warm knife through butter. No, I believe her I feel. Yes or no? After Naruto finished speaking, silence reigned as the two eldest of the Sasuke family took time to take in what just happened. It was unusual for Naruto to ever demand anything. Even as a child, Naruto rarely wanted anything, preferring to play with what he had. But even a deaf person could have heard the demand that was in Naruto's words. It was a sobering experience for both Hagoromo and Kaguya. It seemed they had been fooled by the childish mask that Naruto wore, having forgotten that underneath there was an intellect that could rival Hagoromo in aspects, and along with what Kaguya believes from what she just heard, a side that can be hard, cold and mean in every way. It was a real wake-up call for two of the three Sasuke. It seemed that even they had forgotten just who Naruto could truly be if he wanted to, and were drawn into believing his mask. While both Kaguya and Hagoromo knew Naruto would never turn evil or use his powers to purposely harm others, it made them pity whoever had Naruto as an enemy. Kaguya blinked before remembering the question. After a few seconds to think about it, she presented her answer to Naruto. Yes, with the right training. Naruto didn't verbally answer, instead choosing to nod his head. After several minutes of silence, it was broken by Hagoromo asking a question. When will we be leaving the monastery? This could mess up some of his projects he had been working on while he was staying in the monastery. Hopefully they wouldn't be leaving soon. Do not worry about your projects, Hagoromo. His mother said as if reading his mind. We will not be leaving for maybe a few years, as both you and your brother must practice with both of your weapons, perhaps even creating individual styles for them if you are proficient enough. Naruto frowned for a second, thinking over the reason for having the weapons, before opening his mouth. But Ka-chan, I have my chakra channeling for my abnormal strength, and Hagoromo has the Asura path. Why would need weapons at all? But Kaguya shook her head slightly. This is what I mean by not knowing how the world works, she said with slight sorry. In the outside world it isn't normal for some using hand-to-hand fighting style to beat a samurai or sword wielder. The extra reach of the sword and the sharp blade are usually enough to ward off anyone of fighting someone with them. However, if you defeat anyone with a sword, no matter who it is, it won't attract as much attention as it would if you beat them barehanded. As she finished speaking, the family descended into silence for several moments before Hagoromo asked one last question. Ka-san, could I see the technique you used to create my Shakugan and my brother's staff? Creating something from nothing sounds like an interesting ability. Hagoromo inquired. The ability sounded amazing, with its possibilities having the potential to be limitless. Kaguya nodded but gave no verbal reply. She extended her hands and held them out, palms up, while closing her eyes like in meditation. Slowly, a red flame sprang to life in her left, and while simultaneously, a blue one appeared in her right. Both of the flames continued to grow in size, yet there was surprisingly no heat from either of them like a normal flame. The flames stopped growing once they had completely encased both hands in their respective colors. They both continued to flicker, and both around like they were swinging in a breeze. Suddenly, Kaguya lifted her hands slightly before turning her palms to face each other, still shrouded in their respective colors, before slammed them together. A bright light exploded out from where her hands met, blinding both the boys, who looked away, and their mother, who closed her eyes, before the light slowly dimmed. As the last of the light faded away and both boys could look at their mother more specifically, her palms again, they found her palms now open like flat scroll and occupied. The butterfly, a black and blue butterfly, was calmly in her palms, inspecting its surroundings before it took off, fluttering out of Kaguya's hands and reach, while Hagoromo and Naruto followed it with their distinctive eyes, as it flew up. Around the garden and out into the world beyond the monastery. Both boys then turned to their mother wide-eyed. She internally smirked at their expressions, pleased that she could still shock them from time to time. That, she said, was what I like to call creation of all things. It has the ability to create anything the wielder desires. After several seconds of stunned silence from Kaguya's children, Naruto leant over and whispered into Hagoromo's ear, while his eyes were still focused on his mother. You know how I got over my jealousy of your eyes? Naruto left no space for a reply, instead continuing to whisper. I lied. That was totally cruel. Hagoromo chose to ignore him in favor of asking his mother a question. How did you do that? He asked. What did you use? Chakra, she said simply. Well, not chakra entirely, more like the aspects of chakra being used to create something new. Here both Kaguya and Hagoromo missed the pensive look Naruto got on his face. After uncovering my instinctual memories of creation of all things, I discovered that two things are required to create chakra. I named the two aspects yin and yang. They represent the spiritual, like my illusions, and physical, like your enhanced strength, respectively. Yin was the blue flame with yang as the red. Yin is used to bring what is imagined into reality, while yang is used to breath and vitality. Together they create something from nothing. However, this is not a technique to take lightly. It took me years to be able to craft both of your weapons to my standard. When, Hagoromo, and I know you will, try to perform this technique, do not expect to make quick progress. As she finished up her explanation, she decided that they had talked enough today, and that any more information she gave most likely wouldn't stick. As she stood up, she prompted both of them to do the same, which they did, rising with their weapons in hand. That is enough explanation for one day. You both have the rest of the day off to work on your own projects. If either of you need anything, I will be in my room resting. As Kaguya traveled back to her room to rest and reflect on the day's events, and Hagoromo decided to meditate in front, he eventually learned not to do it over the pond. Naruto decided to do some training. Arriving in one of the two large former praying rooms, Naruto immediately closed the door to the room, wanting to keep what he was doing under wraps. As he stood in the middle of the room, he raised his arms, creating a 90-degree angle with his palms up, and willed a ball of water to appear in the palm of one hand, while doing the same for a ball of wind to appear in the other. Yin and yang, he murmured. Aspects of chakra being used to make something new. He echoed his mother. As he slowly moved both palms and therefore, both elements, the ball of wind glowed a dull blue, while the water did the same in a dull red color. Finally both came together, joining completely, and a cool tingling sensation crawled up his arms. Watching closely, he watched as the water froze as it absorbed the ball of wind, and the water and wind disappeared, leaving in their place a completely smooth ball of pure ice hovering just above his left palm. With a mere thought, the newly created ball of ice rose, before flattening itself. The now disk of ice slowly started to rotate at an increasing speed, before it shot forward, slicing through the air like it was a katana through the parchment of a scroll. It went so fast that Naruto actually lost track of it. Suddenly there was a horrible screeching sound from the wall opposite Naruto's position. Walking towards where the noise originated from, Naruto was greeted a surprising sight. There was no ice disc on the floor or even embedded in the wall. At first Naruto simply thought that the disc shattered into tiny pieces, but quickly dismissed that thought. The sound he heard didn't match that possibility. Looking around the area, he was about to give up when he noticed something. A thin line, about as thick as two pieces of parchment placed on top of each other, with the width of Naruto's waist if he had to guess. The cut itself was several centimeters deep. Unbelievable, Naruto thought in awe. Such strength in the ice is meant to be impossible. It should have shattered as soon as it hit the wall. It didn't though. Most likely because of the side effect of being made by chakra. This was incredible. Naruto didn't know if the ice disc was still in the ice, but right now he didn't care. The simple fact that the ice had cut the stone was amazing, let alone cutting several centimeters deep. I created ice by combing wind with water, and if what Ka-san said is true, some yin and yang chakra, with both of them going into a separate element. If I count fire, water, lightning, wind and earth as the basic elements, that means there are another 10 possible elements that I can learn. However, this only counts if I only combine 2 elements at a time. What if I combine 3, 4 or even 5 elements at once? Then there are also the elements that aren't composed of others like crystal and metal, and if what my instincts are telling me, although crystal and metal aren't part of the 5 basic elements, and they can be made by combining chakra natures, I should still be able to use them despite that. Naruto decided to follow his mother's example after discovering his ability to combine elements. Whether this was another ability, or he had unlocked another part of his ability to use the elements, he didn't know, but what he did know was that he was tired, both emotionally and physically. And his Futon was calling him. Wall Town was well known within the land of the Lightning Daimyo, known as one of the most fortified towns in Lightning Country. The village, as the name suggests, has a 10-meter-high wall made of stone that runs around the perimeter, along with numerous guards that were posted along the ramparts of the wall. The addition of the forest that began several meters from the town's wall and circled all the way around, as well as the fact that it was built near the base of a mountain, only added to the defenses the village had. Because of the level of security of the town, it had, over the years, become a trading hub for Lightning Country, with numerous stalls and stands that sold everything from food to clothes to weapons, and, if you knew where to look, slaves. The side effect of the booming business during the day gave the town a seedy underbelly to go with it that was a home to prostitutes, murderers, criminals and mercenaries alike. The corruption in the village wasn't incredibly high, which was lucky all things considered. The worst case of corruption the town faced so far was a guard being paid to look the other way for a few seconds. But it was bound to get worse eventually. It was midday, with the sun high in the sky, when the guards of the trading hub first spotted something out of the ordinary. It started as a spot that appeared at the end of the road that led to the village, but slowly morphed into 3 silhouettes that then morphed into 3 people in monk's robes. While all 3 had their hoods up, it was obvious that 2 were male, while the last was a female. However, there was a fact about them that made the guards nervous about them. Because Hightown is a trading hub, it also acquired a following of bandits that plagued the roads to and from the village, ambushing anyone they believed they could rob. Because of this, many people had taken to hiring mercenaries and samurai bodyguards to escort them to and from the village. However, the 3 travelers that were approaching the village had no such escort, or at least no escort that the guards could see. This could mean several things. 1, they had hidden guards, which was likely. 2, the 2 males were the guards for the women, which was also likely, but judging from how they all wore monk's clothes, probably not. 3, all their guards had been killed on the way towards the village. However, this had no evidence to suggest that, when their guards die, the clients usually run as fast as they can screaming, but the 3 that were walking calmly. Finally, they could be some of the increasingly rare few who could survive walking around without guards. Usually people who can do that turn into a mercenary. It was the last option that scared the guards the most. Whenever the bandits that stalk the roads become too much of a problem, the samurai are usually ordered to go into the woods to clean them out. This usually involves several losses for the invading party, as the samurai's Imara is for one-on-one fights on an open area, not a dense forest that the bandits live in. The Imara of the samurai is bulky, meant for endurance, and therefore can't match up against the speed and flexibility that the bandits have, with little to no Imara on. It was because of all this that the samurai on the ramparts were wary of the 3 travelers. There was no way they could have traveled through the forest without encountering at least one group of bandits. If they could travel through the woods that surrounded the fortified town, and come out without a scratch or drop of blood to stain their clothes, the samurai truly doubted that they would be able to do anything but slow them down. As the 3 travelers got closer to the large village gates, the guards that stood outside the village near the gates approached them, all the while inwardly praying that the obviously strong travelers weren't looking to start trouble. As the guards approached, the 2 male figures fell in line with the female one of them on either side, like guards flanking a client. Neither of the approaching guards could see the full faces of the 3 robe-wearing travelers. The only visible part of the face they could see was the mouth, the rest of it being blocked out by a hood attached to the robes they were wearing. It slightly unsettled the guards. The hoods added a bit of menacing aura around them, the kind that instinctively warned people that they were powerful, and that to fight them was suicide. "Hello there, travelers," the first guard said, trying to not let his fear show in his voice. "What brings you to Hightown?" It was the female of the trio that spoke. "Greetings, guardsmen," she said, with her voice gave no hint of her mood. "Both I and my sons are wishing to enter your town and stock up on supplies, before continuing on our pilgrimage." "You are monks?" he said, surprised and a bit suspicious, momentarily forgetting about the potential strength the 3 before him could have. "What proof of this claim do you have?" For a moment none of the 3 moved, until the 2 companions reached into their cloaks, while the guards who could see the action all tensed simultaneously. They let their bodies relax, however, when instead of pulling out swords, both of the males pulled out what looked like monk staffs, one with gold rings that made a cling noise as it moves, the other with a gold M-shaped cap on the top. Both of the staves had a shaft made of a strange black metal. "Is this enough proof?" The voice of the woman of the group jarred him out of his thoughts. There was now an undertone of annoyance that the guard recognized, having dealt with many nobles and upper-class visitors before. "I apologize, Monk-san," apologized the man, giving a small bow when he did so. "But I had to be certain. You never can let your guard down in times like these. Forgive my rude manners, and please enjoy your stay at Hightown, the trading hub of the Land of Lightning." As the last bit was said, the guard gave a motion to one of the guards on the stone ramparts, and the large gates of the town opened to the three travelers. Omake. The town's citizens. As the three travelers entered the town, what they saw was something that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Every stall, every alleyway, every street, every house, there were people, in green spandex. Mother? One of the travelers asked in horror. What is this? The mother said nothing for a while, simple staring at the town of spandex. This is one of the reasons I preferred isolation. The mother said in a monotone voice. Suddenly, one of the townspeople appeared right in front of them. Yash, 3 travelers have come to our great town. I feel such youth. Come travelers, let us partake in the springtime of youth. The man, if it could be called that, was, like everyone else, wearing a green spandex jumpsuit, with a bowl-cut hairstyle and eyebrows that were moving. Ka-chan, the other traveler whispered. Are his eyebrows moving? How are they so thick? They remind me of caterpillars. Suddenly, what part of the person's face was visible paled? They just wiggled at me. Ka-chan, I'm seriously scared. The other son didn't make any movements, but inwardly agreed with his brother. I know, Naruto. His mother whispered back. But don't make any sudden movements, and maybe it will leave us alone. Both boys, trusting their mother's advice, stiffened and tried not to move even an eyelid. Unfortunately, it was all for naught. Yash, come my new friends, let us get you some new clothes that will show off your youthfulness. Then we shall all join our annual youth festival. Can I get a yash? She screamed. The response scared the shit out of the 3 travelers, but also made them realize the meaning of the wool. It wasn't meant to keep bandits out, it was meant to keep these people in. Every single person they could see, male and female, young and old, stuck a fist in the air and let out one word. Yash. They all responded. When the man focused back on his new friends, all he found was empty air. He scratched his head for a moment before grinning. His new friends must have already gone on to buy something to help unlock their youth. The man let out a tear. It was always good to see people let out their inner youth, it brought out such happiness. As he went to go about the rest of his day, he felt a shadow on his back. Turning around, wanting to help the person who was so unyouthful as to step in front of the sun, he spotted no one, but could still feel the shadow. Realizing that whatever was blocking out the sun was above him, he looked up. The last thing he would see would be a tower of earth descending onto his village. As he stared at the falling rock, he had one last thought. How unyouthful. The massive pile of earth then crushed the village, hitting the earth with a mighty slam that was felt for miles around. Several miles away, on top of a bare hill that overlooked where the village once was, 3 people in monk's robes were standing, the same ones that had the encounter with the thing in green as they called him. This will never be spoken about ever again, the mother said with a hard tone. Both her sons immediately nodded. Not wanting to waste any more time and wanting to put as much distance between them and remains of the village as quickly as possible. It would only be much later that people would wonder why a mountain from one of the mountain ranges that littered the country under the lightning daimyo had suddenly moved around 100 kilometers from its original position. It would be a day later that a passing couple would find a baby wrapped in a bundle in the woods, and thinking it was abandoned, they would decide to take it home. As the woman unwrapped the bundle to see the baby, it was revealed to have a mini bowl haircut and bush eyebrows. As the baby looked up at her, it gurgled out a word. Yash. The people would think nothing of it and take the child back to their home. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.